I just bought a new Miller welder, so I want to show you a comparison of my old Miller welder versus my new Miller welder and the differences between the two and why you should buy one over the other or buy both of them. This is my Millermatic 211. I've had this welder since 2015. This is the new one I picked up. This is my Miller Syncrowave 210. I picked it up so recently I don't even know what it's called. So the takeaway feature of the 211 is that it takes away a lot of your thinking, so you don't have to be an expert in the field of welding to know how to use this machine. What you need to do if you're new with this stuff, and I do this anyway because I don't want to mess with anything too complicated, you can set your wire speed. That's normal on a welder. But with this one, instead of choosing wire speed, you could choose the thickness of your wire, which I'm using 0.35, and it will select the wire speed for you as you're welding. The only other thing you need to know is what the thickness of your metal is, so you just choose that based on this dial here. The other things that is important is selecting what you're using as far as welding. So I'm using flux core. I prefer flux core over using gas. It's just a preference of mine because when I'm welding, I'm mainly trying to get the most penetration when I'm welding. Of course, you do have these other options. These are all shielded, and then the flux core is self-shielded, so there's no gas. The great thing about this welder is that you can weld up to 3/8 inch thick steel with this. With the Dynasty 210, you can weld up to 1/4, so it's not quite as much, but it has a whole lot more capability. You can stick weld with this, you can weld it with the TIG welder, you can also use a MIG welder, but I think that you have to have gas. I don't think that it has the option for shielded, but I could be wrong. This is what they include with the Dynasty 210. This is a quick spool gun, so you can weld aluminum with that too. And it just has the roll of wire right here on the gun rather than inside the machine, which is what the Millermatic 211 has. So the Millermatic 211, it's just a MIG welder. So you don't have all the other options like you do with the Dynasty 210. But this is a great machine, and it's the first one that I bought. I've had it the longest, and I replaced a Lincoln, and I used to have another welder too. But the 211, it's a really awesome machine. It's super reliable. If I had the other welders here, it'd be because they're still working. But for you to see that there's two Millers here and no other welders, you can see that that makes a statement in itself because the other welders don't work anymore. The other things I like about this machine is you have the option to have the 220 plug or the 110, and they just thread on the plug. So it's really easy to change it over without having to have a 210 outlet. So here's the 110 plug, and all I've ever used was the 110 plug. I do plan to get the 220 plug hooked up, but I haven't had it hooked up yet. So here's the gas. When you buy this welder, it does not include a tank, so that would be extra, but it does include the gauges and all the lines. So all you need if you want to get to welding with flux core, you don't need all those gauges in the tank. But if you want to get welding with gas and do aluminum and things like that, then you will need to buy the quick spool gun, and you're going to need to buy that tank right there. I think I paid about $1,500 or $1,300 for this welder. I just can't really remember. It had a $200 rebate, but I don't think I ever got that money for some reason. It did come with a couple more things, like you got this gauge here. This is so you can find out the thickness of your metal. So they give you all the tools necessary to learn how to use this machine, and it's super easy to pick up and weld for anybody that has never welded before. As long as you have a steady hand, you should be able to understand how to use this machine. If you read the diagrams and things here, it shows you how to change over from DCEN to DCEP. The reason you need to know that is because the DCEN is used for the flux core. So mine was set for DCEP when I bought it, and I had to convert it over. Their user manuals are also really helpful, and especially what they put on the machine. There's a user manual in addition to what is written on the machine on the inside here. So on to the Dynasty 210. This machine has capability of welding up to 1/4 inch thick of metal, so not as much as the Millermatic 211. This machine does cost a lot more than the 211, but it's because you're getting so much out of this. You get a TIG welder, you get a stick welder, all in one machine, and a MIG welder, all in one machine. You also have the same thing. You have the plug for the 220, and you also have the plug for the 110. When you buy this machine, you get, just like the other machine, you get the lines and the gauges, but you don't get the tank, so that's extra. The tank they charged me $175 for, and then to fill it was only $20, which was very reasonable. That was for argon. The front of this machine, it's got the options to choose what you are going to weld with. So DC stick, that's the stick welder. DC TIG, that what you would use for stainless steel, which is what I'm using it for. AC TIG, I think that's aluminum, and MIG on the bottom left. You also have a menu button to change a couple of different options, like you can change the frequency. That's going to determine how wide the weld is with the TIG welder. So the higher the frequency, the narrower the weld pool is, and the lower the frequency, the wider the weld pool is. Then you have this compartment right here, which is just for storage for consumables. So you just pull that. And it also has more information here, especially a diagram for how the TIG torch gets put together. When I first started TIG welding in college, I welded up to the whole year, and then the last day of class, after I've taken all my tests and everything, my teacher showed me that my TIG torch was put together improperly by somebody else that had put it together before I had that class. So I was basically welding with the improper equipment. They put something back here together wrong and jammed it up, but what I like about this is it has a diagram for the torch, so you can see that you're putting it together correctly or not. It has more information on the electrodes. They give you, I think, they gave me one electrode with this, so I bought 10 more, which they're like $2 a piece. And I got the red one that came with the gray one when I bought it. It does have this scan disc thing here. I don't know what that's for, but maybe you know what it's for. You can comment below in the comment section. And then here's all your inlet in and out plugs. What I like about this is that, you know, you have this plug here. That's for the TIG torch. You can put the one in there for the stick, and you can also put the one in there for the MIG, and the gas runs directly through it. All you have to do is thread in the gas line on the back side of the welder. This one is your ground, so they just come in or come out like that. Just plug it in like this. One thing I did notice is that you can switch these around. I don't know why that is, so just be aware of that to put them in the correct spot. This one is your plug for your pedal, and that's the on and off switch. Here's the quick spool gun that they give you. I think this thing is about a $275 value or so. I'm not really sure. The guy told me at the store, I can't remember. It's over $200 though. So your wire goes directly in there and it operates through here. Then there's a electrical plug for it, which goes right in here, but there's an adapter that they give you to adapt it to go in there, because this plug is different. I don't know why. It may be different because it may go with another machine similar to this one or something, but it does have an adapter plug, so they give you all the tools necessary to get it to work. Here's the adapter plug that connects to the machine, and then this connects to the spool gun. Here's the plug from the spool gun, and then the spool gun also came with this tip here. That's an extra shield for that, and then it came with, it looks like 5 additional tips, 2 of which are 030 wire and 3 of which are 035 wire. Very cool. I don't know if I'll ever get to use this, but it's good to know that I at least have it. I was thinking about getting one for my Millermatic 211, never did though, but now I got one if I want to use it, because this one does work for the 211. According to this, it works for the Millermatic 211 and the Multimatic 200 and 215. So the difference, I guess, the 210 is that it has this adapter here, I think, because this was actually in a different box. Now I'm going to show you a couple examples of the welds that each of these welders have done. This one I chamfered it here and there, and then I welded this area with the Millermatic 211. This one I welded with the 211 also, but you know, they're not going to look that great on this one because I had to put like a piece of metal in there to make up the difference in the gap. I was trying to get this angle, but that kind of just shows you how much or how thick you can lay the welds down if necessary. And then this one is on the Dynasty 210 with the TIG welder. This one's on the Dynasty 210 with the TIG welder. Just fusion welding, with no rods or anything. If I had to choose one welder over the other, I think I would choose the Dynasty 210 just because it has so much capability with the different options of using the stick welder, a MIG welder, and a TIG welder. That machine is more expensive. I paid a little less than $3,400 for everything, but I can tell you it was definitely worth it. I was looking online to try and buy one used potentially, but the things that I didn't understand is I didn't understand which machine I needed, what the capability of it was from getting it from a used individual, or I also didn't know, was I getting the original user's manual and all the parts, like such as all the tools that you've seen there with the quick spool gun, and then the TIG welder, torch, the adapter for the 220 to 110 plug. There's just a lot of parts that could be missing if I were to buy a used machine. So when I bought this, I went directly to ARC3 Gases in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and I brought them what I was going to be welding, and I asked him what the capability of the machine is that I would need, and then he showed me a couple different options. One was an $1,800 Miller that just does TIG welding, but he told me that the capability wasn't as, it isn't as great as the Dynasty 210, so that's why I went with the Dynasty 210. I don't have any regrets for going with that because the other welder was just a TIG welder. This one has so many more options that gives me capabilities to do other jobs if necessary. Otherwise, I'd have to go out and buy a separate stick welder or a separate MIG welder. I just like to have the option to have all the other options just in case I ever need them.